What I have here, everyone, is one of the most impressive warm weather summertime camping products that I've tested out in a long time. This comes from OneTigris, and this is their 2-person bug tent. You can use it on its own, you can use it with a tarp, and you can also use it with the ROC Shield tent. The primary way that I've been using this product is underneath a tarp, and it's worked fantastically for that purpose. My name is Luke, this is the Outdoor Gear Review. Thank you so much for tuning in, I do appreciate it. With that being said, let's focus on the review of the 2-person bug tent from OneTigris. Roughly 1 year ago, I did a preview of this product where I went over every single feature, every single stat. In this episode, I'm going to focus primarily on the review. So if you have any questions that are not answered in this episode, they will likely be answered in the preview. To begin, let's go over some stats real quick so we can get those out of the way and focus on the pros and cons. So to begin, there are 2 different versions of this setup here. There's a 1-person and also a 2-person. With this 2-person version, there are 3 doors. One here, one there, and one on the other side. There is not a 4th door on the other side here. This could be set up using poles, trekking poles. You can also set it up underneath a tarp by connecting it to the tarp, and you can even connect it to tree limbs that are above this shelter. This comes in a brown color, and that is it. There are no other options. When it's stored, it measures 12 inches long by 6 inches wide. When it's set up, it measures 6.5 feet long, 4.9 feet tall, and 4.2 feet wide. It weighs 4.2 pounds, and it's made from a 70 denier nylon. You also have a nylon mesh and SBS zippers. The waterproof rating of the floor is 3,000 millimeters. It costs $65, and you get the tent, 6 tent stakes, 4 guy lines, and 2 storage bags. One for the tent itself and one for the stakes. When I came across this product roughly a year ago, what came to mind for me as far as use cases go are overlanding situations along with backpacking. I've used it for both, and I can tell you all, this product works fantastically for those use cases. For really warm conditions, right? Warm nights, humid nights, nothing is going to perform better than this here. That's because this is covered in mesh. You have mesh all the way around this product, so even if there's a slight breeze, you will feel it coming through the mesh inside of the tent, which is exactly what you want on those warm nights. For warm weather camping, there's not a product out there, there's not a shelter out there that's going to perform as good as this. With that being said though, there are some caveats to using a product like this, and we'll talk about those in just a minute. Currently I have around 8 nights out with this product here, and I'm certainly ready to share with you all the pros and cons. So let's start with the pros at the top. Let's talk about quality. The quality of this shelter here is really good. There's no issues with the seams, the seam tape looks good. All in all, this is a very well made product. At the same time, OneTigris did use premium materials with this shelter. We have a nylon floor, that's the fabric, and we also have a nylon mesh. When it comes to the zippers, these have worked very well. They're very smooth. I have no reason to believe that they're going to give you any sort of problems. Next, everyone, let's talk about weight. At 2.4 pounds, the weight of this is not bad at all. At the same time, the storage size for this is not bad either. It certainly does not take up much space inside of your backpack, which is appreciated. With that being said though, this product certainly could have been lighter weight, but it would have cost a whole lot more than $65, and that does need to be kept in mind. So 2.4 pounds for $65 with a nylon material, it makes sense and it's a good deal. The value is there, I should say. In regards to design, OneTigris has done a really good job here. There are plenty of bug tents out on the market today, but not all of them are the same as far as features go. This one here, you have 3 doors. You have this large main door here on this side, and you have the 2 side doors. If you set this up with poles, these poles do get in the way, but luckily you have this main entrance here. If you set this up over a tree limb or underneath a tarp, you don't have to have these poles, and you can easily get in and out of this tent from the sides. Getting in these doors when you have poles there, it's difficult. But again, you do have this large door here at the side. Yes, you do have a bathtub floor, but it only sticks up roughly 5 inches, so it's not bad. Getting into and out of this, for most people in most situations, is not going to be a big deal. As far as ventilation goes with this shelter here, it is a 10 out of 10. When it comes to warm weather, summertime camping, nothing, as I've mentioned before, is going to perform as good as this. At the same time, because ventilation is so good, condensation is a non-issue. In regards to setting this up, this is a very easy process, but it is one that has a learning curve to it if you've never set up something like this. Now, if you're using poles, nice and easy. All you have to do is stake out the corners, erect the poles, and then stake out those poles. But if you're going to attach this underneath a tarp, or to like an overhead branch. There is a little bit of a learning curve there. Experience, practice, that is how you're going to become proficient with using something like this. Overall though, once you know what you're doing, this is super easy to set up and at the same time super quick, breaking it down even faster. Moving on everyone, I'm not sure if it really comes through on the screen there how large this is, but this is a very large shelter. This is much larger than your typical 2-person tent, I should say. There is a ton of space inside of this. There's enough space for 2 sleeping pads plus some gear. For 1 person, this is a palace. Sleeping pad, sleeping bag, pillow, backpack, there's space for a dog. Even with 2 people inside of this, there's enough space for both to sit up, to be changing clothes, to be doing whatever they want to do. This is a very large shelter. It's long, it's wide, and it's also very tall. Another positive point for this shelter is that everything that you need to set this up is included. You have all of the tent stakes, you have the guy lines. You do not receive the poles, you have to supply those yourself. For car camping purposes, you can use green elephant poles like this. They work great. Or for backpacking purposes, you can simply attach it to the tarp that's overhead. Or you can run a guy line, set it up that way, or you can even attach it to tree limbs that are above the shelter. Ultimately, you have a lot of options here, and thankfully, everything that you need to set this up in any way is included. Minus the poles, of course. This shelter has a bathtub floor. It sticks up roughly 5 inches. That is an important feature to this shelter here because that offers you a level of protection. When you have a tarp overhead and it's raining outside, water's falling off that tarp, hitting the ground, you have that bathtub floor to prevent splashback, to prevent water from getting to the inside of the tent. That, everyone, is important. With some bug tents, they do not have a bathtub floor, and you will have issues with water splashing into the tent unless you're using a massive tarp. Speaking of tarps, what I like to use with this here is a 10 foot by 13 foot. A tarp of that size will give you plenty of protection for the inner, but also usable space when the inner is set up. The last positive point to mention here before jumping over to the cons is price. At $65, that is a very fair price for this. When you consider the materials, when you consider how lightweight it is, everything makes sense. This is a good value for $65. At the same time, this is large. This is one of the largest bug inners that I've personally ever seen. Oftentimes, they're quite small. This one here, it certainly is not. Concerning the negative aspects that I have with this shelter system, luckily there aren't any deal breakers. The biggest issue that I have is the storage bag. It is simply too small to fit this tent inside of it. It is a struggle to get this to fit inside of this, and it simply does not have to be that way. If this storage bag was an inch longer and wider, it would have worked perfectly. It would be super easy to get this inside of this, but that's simply not the case as is. This always surprises me when it comes to storage bags for tents, for sleeping bags, for products like this. The companies that make these products don't actually use them. They don't test them out. Otherwise, they would be irritated with their own designs. These would be larger. OneTigris, please make the storage bag just a little bit bigger so you can easily get this to fit inside of it. When you're out on a trip and you're struggling to get this back into the storage bag, it's frustrating. Luckily, everyone, that is a minor complaint. That is a minor annoyance. The next issue that I will talk about here, that we need to talk about here, is the fact that there is a learning curve on using this in conjunction with a tarp. And this is something that's going to take some people quite a while to figure out. It really does depend on how much experience that you have with a tarp. At the same time, physics does play a role in this. I know that sounds weird, so allow me to explain. When it comes to using this with a tarp in wet conditions, you really do have to have a good understanding of how tarps work and how to set them up so that you can use that tarp in conjunction with this safely, so that you can keep this dry when it's wet out, when it's raining, when it's windy and raining. All of that can take some time to learn. Watching me use this in wet conditions will help, but getting this out into the field and using this in conjunction with a tarp, that is going to teach you the most. I mentioned physics, and I'm talking about how the water falls down, how it splashes from the ground, how it's driven by the rain. Those are all aspects that you have to consider when using a product like this. If you're going to use this with a small tarp, you may and likely will have issues. That's why with a bug inner like this, you need to use it with a large tarp. You need to give yourself maximum protection. I personally like to use this with a 13-foot by 10-foot wide tarp. That will offer a ton of protection for this system. At the same time, you do need to realize that there could be situations that develop, weather conditions that develop, where this is going to get wet underneath the tarp and there's nothing you could do about it outside of breaking this down, weathering the storm, and then setting it back up. In super windy conditions with a tarp, it is unlikely that you're going to get that tarp secure enough and enclosed enough to protect this fully. All of this goes hand in hand with having experiences with tarps and basically learning how to use this in conjunction with one. A great example of what I'm talking about is with an overnight trip that I did here at Lone Wolf Mountain recently. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up to a sky flashing with lightning and tons of thunder. Minutes later, I was hit by a severe thunderstorm. The tarp did exactly what it needed to do, but I did not have time to break this down. And by the time the storm had passed, this was full of water. That is a real life scenario that you may face yourself. It's not that I did anything wrong. It's just how it goes when using a product like this. You have to be prepared for situations like that. And you also have to be prepared for limitations of sorts. In my case, I didn't have enough time to break this down before the storm hit. And because of that, it filled with water, wind-blown rain. No matter how much I would have had that tarp sealed up, wind-driven rain would have been coming from somewhere that would have been impacting this shelter. And that's just something that you have to consider. Using a product like this and a tarp, it's not the same thing as using a tent. When you're inside of a tent, you are fully enclosed, fully protected. With something like this, there's always going to be an air gap. And when there's an air gap, moisture can get through it, and this can get wet. And that, my friends, takes us over to the summary that I have concerning this product here. In the end, I can easily recommend this. I can give it 2 thumbs up. This is a fantastic product for the money. The quality is excellent. The weight's not bad. It's fairly compact. I do wish the storage bag was bigger, but that's a minor con in the grand scheme of things. Ultimately, when it comes to hot weather camping, nothing is going to perform as good as this. There is a little bit of a learning curve to setting this up and using it with a tarp, and that does need to be considered. But don't let that scare you off. With a little bit of time, with a little bit of learning, with a little bit of skill, you can figure out how to use this with a tarp and you can stay dry in 95% of cases. There will always be that one type of storm where this will get wet, and that just needs to be considered. And with that, everyone, I am done. It needs to be said that I purchased this with my own money. I'm just sharing information with you all. I do not care if you buy this. OneTigris does not sponsor the channel, never has. I've never had a sponsor. What I'm saying is this: you can take this information and do what you like with it. It does not matter to me. So if you enjoyed this episode, you found it helpful, hit the thumbs up. I do appreciate it. Everyone, take care. Be well. Strength and honor. Bye for now.